What's going on, you guys? It's your Huggable Hipster here, and welcome back to the channel. So today's video is going to be a really fun one. We're going to be diving into the 7 deadly sins as Dark Souls characters. I have it a little bit sprinkled out throughout Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, so we're going to be getting a bit of a mixture of those characters, because I couldn't just pick from one game. I had to choose from all 3 games. Starting off the list with Gluttony is Executioner Smough. Now, Smough was the royal executioner of Anor Londo. The guy is probably one of the most brutish characters I've seen throughout Dark Souls 1, and on top of it, he's a cannibal. Now, Executioner Smough desired to be one of Gwyn's knights. However, Gwyn rejected him because he took absolute pleasure and glee in the work that he did. And also because he was a cannibal who ground up the bones to, feed unto himself. So, yummy. Next up is Lust, and the one that I associate the most with Lust is the Chaos Witch, aka Quelaag. Now, she's a half woman, half spider, just absolutely stunning looking character, and she's one of Izalith's daughters. She was made into this half demon, half spider by the Flames of Chaos, which I find really interesting. When a lot of people look at this character, it does look like a very lustful character, and the thing is that she's protecting her sister, the Fair Lady. So whenever you go into that boss battle, don't take it too hard that she wants to kill you. She's really just protecting her sister. Because when we see women a lot of the time in Souls and Souls-like games, they are very strong, very powerful, very much confident in who they are as a woman. So Lust is a part of that confident nature. Next up, we have Greed, and who better to fit that deadly sin than Gwyn, Lord of Cinder. The biggest reasoning for me as to why Gwyn, Lord of Cinder associates with greed is because he wants the flame to continue going no matter the cost. At the end of the game, you fight him to either continue the flame or bring in the Age of Man. So when we discuss rekindling the flame, we're discussing the greed of humanity, and we're discussing the greed of one specific person, Gwyn, Lord of Cinder. He wouldn't even be a boss battle if he didn't have a big ego. I know that's silly to say, but when you think about it, he's fighting the character, the Hollow, for his title to remain, to keep the Lord of Cinder title. Now, if you think about it, Lord of Cinder is the Lord of the Flame, Lord of the Fire. So when we're fighting this boss, we are going to be taking over that position. We are going to become the new Lord of Cinder. So in an essence, philosophically, you could look at it in a sense of where Gwyn, Lord of Cinder, doesn't want to give up his title. So there comes in the ego, there comes in the greed of wanting to keep the flame for himself and not letting anything continue, because why else have a boss battle there if he doesn't want to keep the notoriety of continuing the flame, of continuing the bonfire? I love thinking about this stuff. It's so much fun. Next up, we have Sorrow and Despair, and immediately the first thing that came to my mind, the first character that popped up in my brain was Artorias of the Abyss. Now, this is actually kind of funny. Oddly enough, Artorias was one of the 4 knights of Gwyn, Lord of Cinder. Now, while Artorias was in New Londo, he discovered the ability of abyss walking, and that's where things started to go downhill. This allowed him to enter the home of the Dark Wraiths. This also earned him the title, the Abyss Walker. Now, this is really important to keep in mind. Artorias was defeated by Manus, who is the final boss that we face in the DLC. Artorias then sacrificed his shield to protect his loyal companion, Sif. And that's kind of why it's so sad, the story of Artorias, because he knew that he had to keep fighting and doing what was right, but in the end he fell because he was in the abyss for so long that he became so incredibly corrupted by everything that was going on. So it's a story of incredible sorrow, I think even more so than Solaire. Now, Solaire's story is sad, yes, but Artorias' story is just, it's honestly so emotionally heartbreaking. Next up, I had a little bit of trouble trying to figure out which one I would pair with Wrath, but I feel like the best one that goes with Wrath is the Iron Golem. This is the last trial in Sen's Fortress in Dark Souls 1, and this boss is just, oh my god, it can either be really easy or really difficult because there's a glitch that you can do to get it to trip over itself and just fall off of a precipice, because we love when Dark Souls games do that for us. Or whenever they hop and it glitches and they hop right off the bridge. I love that. This boss must be defeated in order to reach Anor Londo. The best part about this game is that there are certain bosses like this that you have to face immense battles of will, of where you get to a certain point, and it's kind of like a place marker boss, if you will, of where you have that boss and it tests the player's strength in how I don't want to say vicious, but vicious is the right word, I think, of where you have to be vicious in order to see how fast and how aggressive you can be. And I don't think it's necessarily the golem that, now that I think about it, that needs to be wrathful. It needs to be the player's own wrath that gets past the golem in order to get into a more difficult section of the game. I think I unlocked something in my brain that I didn't quite want to unlock yet. But yeah, the Iron Golem is a part of what unlocks wrath for the player, and vice versa. It could be, you know, seen as a wrathful boss, something that's very hard hitting, very much like a battle of attrition where you have to just keep going and wearing it down. And next up is Sloth, and who else thought of Covetous Demon? The Covetous Demon is probably the easiest boss in Dark Souls 2, besides the what was it, the Frog Skull. The Frog Skull was pretty damn easy, honestly. No, they were in battle for one another to be with Sloth, but the frog, what was it, the frog demon skull thing, that had a little more potency to it because it had like the whammies that it could do, and I'm just like, oh no, that's not really that lazy. But the Covetous Demon, he just literally rolls around. He's like, I'm too tired. Squish. It's just, it's lazy. It's lazy. It doesn't, the boss is just incredibly, this is Sloth at its finest. It's slow paced. It's dragging things out. It's rolling. It's honestly, it's so, that boss was hilarious for me, actually. And last but not least, pride and or hubris. This one is Lothric. This boss, Lothric, is probably one of the best boss battles I've ever experienced in Dark Souls 3. Besides Dancer of the Boreal Valley, I will die on that hill. Now, one prince is up in the balcony healing the other one, and this is one of the first bosses in Dark Souls that I've seen actually give really intensive dialogue that is philosophical and psychological in nature. It was interesting because this quote I found the most, reason behind why I put this character as pride/hubris, where he states, "Oh dear brother, I'm on my way. My brother, unyielding sword of Lothric's prince, rise if you would, for that is our curse." So let's kind of go into this a little bit more. Oh dear brother, I'm on my way. On your way to death, perhaps, your way to fight for what you believe in, your way to something that is above, as a kind of an ascensionism, if you will. My brother, unyielding sword. My brother, he's calling him his unyielding sword of Lothric's prince, rise if you would, for that is our curse. So it is a curse for him to always be living, always. And there's a certain pride and hubris in the fact that you cannot die, right? Like all of these Dark Souls bosses, there's a certain pride in knowing that I'm going to live forever and I'm going to be successful because the other guy wasn't successful until the chosen undead came along. There's also another one, that spot marks our grave, but you can rest here too. So there's a certain kindness in his hubris of where, oh yeah, well, you can rest here too amongst the greats if you so choose. And they mean the entire boss arena. So they know they're going to die. They know it. And that's the weird part, is that they have hubris in knowing that they're going to live forever, but at a certain point also knowing that they're going to die. It's a convoluted pride. But you guys, that was it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed this fun video. I love doing these kinds of videos because it's so outside of the box and I always am interested to see what people think of them. But if you guys like my face and what I do, please be sure to subscribe and hit that bell down below. May you find your worth in the waking world, dear hunter. Stay casually nerdy, and I will see you all in the next video. Umbasa.